From tracking cabs to clouds, have you thought about how location data has become an integral part of our everyday lives? If you're interested in knowing the science of location better, our Introduction to Geospatial Science and Technology course is the perfect starting point for you. Designed for curious minds from all disciplines, perfect for newcomers and working professionals, this course unpacks the science and real world applications behind geospatial technology. Don't miss the chance to learn from the best in the field. Applications closing on 7 June.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast brought to you by the Takshashila Institution. I'm Wini, Communications Manager at the Institute. Today, we reflect on a fascinating and often under-discussed story in India's recent history, the journey of Sikkim. So once a Buddhist kingdom in the Himalayas, Sikkim officially became the 22nd state of the Indian Union in 1975. And this year marks 50 years since the historic transition. Sikkim's merger with India wasn't just a geopolitical event. It was a turning point driven by a confluence of internal demands for democracy, external interests, and the broader reimagining of political identity in the Eastern Himalayas. To discuss this in detail, from monarchy to democracy, from a buffer state to a strategic frontier, I am joined by someone whose work and experience span academia, governance, and diplomacy. Professor Mahendra P Lama is senior professor at the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is also the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of Sikkim and former member of the National Security Advisory Board of Government of India. Hi, Prof. Lama. It's a real honor to have you on All Things Policy.
Hi, thank you very much, Winnie. Thank you for this podcast invitation.
So I want to begin by discussing the very start of this 50-year arc, right? So for many listeners, Sikkim's status as a former independent kingdom may not be widely known. So could you maybe take us back to the political climate of the early 1970s? What was the relationship like between the monarchy and the people? The social and political factors, both internal and external, that led to the demand for greater democracy and the referendum of 1975. Maybe not just the sequence of events, but also the mood on the ground in Sikkim at the time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. And in 1975, after almost 320 plus years uh, of monarchy, the people of Sikkim decided to join Union of India as the 22nd state of India. And prior to that, Sikkim had a very interesting history where it was an independent kingdom. Then the British India government decided to protect it and gave it through various treaties, including the Treaty of Tumlung of 1861 and the 1890 Anglo-Chinese Convention of 1890. It gave a proper, what you call it, protectorate status. And in 1947, when India became independent, immediately after that, in 1950, through a treaty, India continued to give a protectorate status to Sikkim with one or two major conditions that the defense, foreign policy, and to a large extent, even foreign relations would be conducted or controlled by Government of India. But on the other hand, all the development finances would be basically extended by Government of India. And the third, of course, was the internal affairs could be conducted by the monarchy. Now, it went on exactly on that pattern till 1973. There was an accord between a tripartite agreement between the people, the Chogal, and the government of India. And in 1975, through a referendum, an overwhelming majority of the people voted for a kind of a merging with India as a kind of 22nd state. The mood was pretty upbeat. There were, of course, a section which did not like it to happen, but people in general were very, very desirous of having integrated with India, mainly on three grounds. One, of course, democracy, which Sikkim never had practiced in the past, the way independent India had practiced. Number two, Sikkim had not witnessed the scale of and the speed of development that the rest of India had witnessed. So it really wanted to get into the development matrices as fast as possible. And third, of course, is it wanted its identity and to be conserved or protected through special provisions of the Constitution of India. And that was done through Article 371F. And since then, since 1975, this is 50 years of merger with India. Sikkim has never looked back. And most of the aspirations of the people of Sikkim, particularly on the development side, on the democracy side, really have been, to a large extent, fulfilled. The most critical part of the entire 50 years of journey is, besides a kind of wholesome development that has been brought to or inducted into Sikkim, Sikkim remains one of the most peaceful states, unlike many of the northeast part of India, northeast states of India. Sikkim is the most peaceful state, and it is indicated by a number of indicators that nowhere you don't find any kind of violence, you don't find any kind of disruptions in political processes, and more than that, you will find Sikkim to be on the top of the country as far as the per capita income is concerned. Is concerned, almost 7,50,000 rupees per capita income. With this, Sikkim is one of the most developed states in the country.
Since there was a comparison between Sikkim and the northeastern states, right? So 50 years after the merger, how would you characterize Sikkim's political evolution within the Indian Union? So, when you compare Sikkim to other states in the Northeast, many of the states have struggled with insurgency, identity based conflicts, and feelings of alienation, right? So, Sikkim's experience, like you mentioned, appears relatively stable. So, what has enabled that stability, and how have the constitutional safeguards under Article 371 F helped Sikkim navigate its integration without losing its distinctiveness?
Yeah. I think the most critical issue which has been there in Sikkim in the last 50 years or prior to 1975 is, of course, the very unique identity of Sikkim. And this unique identity of Sikkim has not been disrupted, has not been disturbed, and to a large extent has been protected, conserved. And this is based on four pillars of that is, for the first is the political history. Sikkim has a political history which is pretty unique precisely because this is a very significant part of eastern Himalayas, very much invaded by sometimes by Tibetans, sometimes by Nepalese, right? And a major gateway to get into what you call Tibet and through Tibet to Central Asia. So it became and along with this, Darjeeling, Kalimpong geography are of very, very critical importance. So it had a very unique political history. The second pillar of its identity is, of course, its biodiversity. It's the biodiversity hotspot, one. Secondly, it's a water tower. Secondly, it has Kanchenjunga, the third highest peak in the world, and all kinds of flora and fauna that is absolutely what you call it unique endowments as far as nature is concerned. So there is very little comparison as far as its natural resources are concerned. Now, see, in the entire identity four pillar matrices of Sikkim and the people of Sikkim, the third pillar is very critical, that is related to cultural ecology. Sikkim has primarily three ethnic groups, the Bhutias, the Lepchas, and the Nepalese. And all three ethnic groups have lived in total harmony, and they have very strong interconnections culturally, linguistically, socially, and of course, geographically, physically too. And because all of them together have been traditionally described as Sikkimese, the Sikkim subject given to the Sikkimese nationals by the Chogyal was again based on the term Sikkimese. There was nothing like mentioning a particular ethnic group or a community. And the Indian citizenship, which was given to all the Sikkimese, was also based on they being Sikkimese, not being a particular, a specific ethnic group. And thirdly, when various provisions were extended by Government of India, including the exemptions from the income tax in 2008, that was also based on they being the Sikkimese and not on the basis of a particular ethnic group or a community or a social entity. But more than that, I think Sikkim's cultural ecology extends beyond Sikkim. It has many things to do with Tibet, Bhutan, Nepal, and to a certain extent to West Bengal and other states, particularly Darjeeling and surrounding areas. And unlike the northeast states, the entire basis of cultural ecology has remained unchallenged, unquestioned, and to a large extent, largely consolidated. The fourth, of course, identity pillar is the Article 371F in the Constitution of India that gives a very special status to Sikkim, and it status to Sikkim in the sense a number of Sikkimese traditional laws can still be practiced. Uh, Traditional cultural practices, what you call it, the Jumsa, like in the in North, that is the panchayat use, that is a very traditional panchayat system, continues to be there. A number of other protections as far as Sikkim is concerned, the institutional protections, the political protections, linguistic protections, all kinds of things are there. Therefore, I think Sikkim remains uh, one of the most peaceful states because all these four pillars of identity have been well conserved, well protected, and they remain well founded and resilient and robust too.
I think you've pretty much covered the cultural aspect. I want to discuss a bit more on the geographical part. So Sikkim is, like you mentioned, is positioned in a very sensitive and strategic part of South Asia, right? So between China, Bhutan, and Nepal, and it's also close to the Siliguri corridor that links the rest of India to its northeastern states. So from a security standpoint, How do you think Sikkim's location has shaped India's foreign policy priorities over the decades? And what have been some of the long term investments, military and infrastructure, to mention, that the government of India has made in Sikkim, especially in light of the tensions with China?
Well, I think Sikkim is one of the most critical geography as far as India's geopolitics is concerned because it has a quadri-junctional location. You have China, you have Bhutan, you have Nepal, north, east, west, and of course, you have a little down below, you have Bangladesh. But it is to be noted that before 1975, there were quite a few skirmishes, including of 1962 war, and of course, after that, the Nathula skirmish towards the end of the late 1960s. And but after it became a part of India, a state of India, there has been absolutely no cross-border skirmishes, including any kind of insurgencies, terrorism, right? Despite a little down below the famous Naxalite movement in Darjeeling districts, a little beyond in Nepal, you have Maoist movement. A little towards Bhutan, you have the exodus of refugees. Right in Tibet, you have instability. So, despite all these, as far as traditional security issues are concerned, Sikkim remained absolutely insulated, and we must congratulate the people and appreciate the people of Sikkim for maintaining high degree of human security and a kind of single-minded dedication to national security as far as the nation's interest and nation's national power is concerned. But today we have three major problems faced by Sikkim. One is Sikkim is the most integrated geography of India, despite its locations. But this is the least connected geography of India also. You have just one highway, and that remains disrupted for almost 6 months a year. The airport, which was inaugurated in 2015-16, started working, it doesn't work anymore. Railway project will take time. And so it's a very, very difficult situation for Sikkim as far as connectivity is concerned. Despite this, you have almost 16 to 20 lakh tourists coming to Sikkim. The second major problem in Sikkim today is the non traditional security threats, basically emanating from what you call it climate change, global warming, glacial lake outburst flood. All right, you have seen what really happened in October 3rd, 4th, 2023. That entire there was a massive glacial lake outburst flood, swept away major hydropower projects, killed hundreds of people, right, destroyed large number of public and private properties. But despite all these, I would say that Sikkim continues to do well. It remains, uh, say, for example, Sikkim is a geography that interconnects very well with Tibet. We are able to open Nathula trade route after 44 years in 2006, and that route is now is the shortest possible and the easiest route to for the pilgrims going to Kailas and Mansarovar. But the most challenging part of Sikkim today, besides connectivity, besides its interconnections with mainstream India, though it has integrated emotionally, politically, institutionally, the most critical part is Sikkim wants to really do transforming activities as far as its green policies are concerned. So, Sikkim would like to be by 2047 the green destination of India, where everything, anything would be green. The energy to industries, to agricultural systems, to transport, communications will all be on a kind of a, the services sector will be on the basis of all green principles. Of course, it is now one of the critical geographies of organic farming. Therefore, the challenge is formidable precisely because you have very rich resources, endowments, but you don't have institutions that would support the green destination project of Sikkim. And you have, on the one hand, a massive challenge about Viksit Bharat of the Prime Minister of India, where Sikkim is going to be a very, very critical element. But Sikkim would not like to contribute the way Tamil Nadu or the way Karnataka or Gujarat would contribute to Viksit Bharat. It would contribute in a different way, in a solid way, and in a substantive way by promoting everything green. That is the unique feature of Sikkim. So it's a major challenge. So we are looking for green technology, green investors. We are looking for green entrepreneurs to come, green institutions to come, particularly in areas like climate change, in areas like disaster management, agriculture, industry, services sector, energy, right, transport, communications. So it's a challenge, and that also means changing the development models. You know, in the last 50 years, despite the fact that Sikkim did uh, extraordinarily well as far as development is concerned, it started with a 700 rupees per capita income and 85% of the people below poverty line in 1975. Today, Sikkim is the fourth state with 2% people below poverty line, right? I think, and Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Goa are the three states ahead of Sikkim. Despite all this, the model which we followed in development was something like that of Tamil Nadu or something, because the national government, the planning commission, to a large extent, even Niti Aayog, would follow a kind of a absolutely strikingly uniform development model throughout the country. But in case of Sikkim, we lost precisely because the development gains, the cream of development, because of the very model of development the very policy of development we followed like that of any other states in the country, the cream of development actually went out of the state, and state could not really mobilize resources, could not plow back its extra uh, surpluses, because surpluses all went off. So we are now very conscious. The Honorable Chief Minister Prem Singh Tamang is very conscious of the fact that we have to have a new development model, and his entire team is working on doing a new development model, which actually would be a kind of a model useful for other Indian hill states, including Arunachal Pradesh, to Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and of course the neighboring countries also, including Bhutan, Nepal, to a certain extent, even Myanmar.
So, in the context of India's Act East policy and broader Himalayan diplomacy, where do you see Sikkim fitting in? Could it serve as a conduit for cross border trade and connectivity in the region? And what are the geopolitical sensitivities involved, especially when we consider the China factor?
Well, I think, you know, the borders are to be treated not as a kind of a geometric line. And many of our policies vis-a-vis the neighboring countries have not been able to deliver the goods and services which we actually aspired for, because we started considering the borders as geometric lines and not the borderlands. Because the moment you consider borders as geometric lines, there will be nothing except the military operations or military orthodox military thinking. Whereas the moment you consider them as borderlands, which is actually the case, you have trade, you have tourism, education, health, any kinds of things. So Sikkim is one state which is very consciously promoting border as borderlands. Like the chief minister today has been requesting government of India to open a new corridor, economic corridor between West Sikkim and East Nepal, that is at Chua Vanjan. If that happens, that's a new corridor where we will be providing various kinds of services. Nepal would be doing exchanges with a trade security wise also, that eastern Nepal would be a kind of a integrated security system between India and Nepal, right? Similarly, what we are saying also is in the Act East India policy, since Sikkim is a member of the Northeastern Council or member of the Ministry of Development of Northeast region, Sikkim could play a major role in developing a variety of supply chains through northeast part of India, combining Bhutan, Nepal, and linking it, connecting with Southeast Asian countries in terms of designs, in terms of traditional medicinal systems, in terms of electricity trading, in terms of tourism, education, health, pilgrimage. I think that's a grand view government of India has in mind, but at the same time, the actor is a state like Sikkim or Assam. So that's going to happen in the course of next 20 years because now the connectivity, at least in the northeast region, within the northeast, and the rest of India, and the northeast with the neighboring countries have largely improved and to a certain extent even transformed. I think this is pretty possible. And use of what you call the Fulbari corridor, that is the heart of the BBIN, the Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, in Siliguri, right? That interconnects Bhutan, Nepal, northeast part of India, then North Bengal, Sikkim, with Nepal, Bhutan, with Bangladesh, and through Bangladesh, it can go to Chittagong ports or the deep sea port being developed by the Japanese, and also use that Fulbari corridor as an alternative to Chicken Neck for the rest of India to enter into northeast part of India through Fulbari corridor and some Bangladeshi territories. So this kind of very securitized economic corridors could be of tremendous value that would be at the heart of India's Act East policy, right? And linking with the trilateral highway that is between India, Myanmar, and Thailand, and taking it further to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and other countries.
So finally, as we celebrate 50 years of Sikkim's statehood, what should we be paying attention to, like both as citizens and as policymakers, when we think about Sikkim's next 50 years? So, what kind of role could it play within India as a model for sustainable development or as a voice for the other mountain states? And also, how can it lead or contribute more meaningfully to regional cooperation in the Eastern Himalayas?
You see, what Sikkim requires today is the second generation institutions. Why, if these institutions are available in Karnataka or in Hyderabad or in Maharashtra or even in a place like Noida in the NCR, why not in Sikkim? Sikkim really requires a very state of the art institutions, technology, manpower, because it has got all the what you call it required basis for making it a major green destination of India and the global world. right? So what it requires, say for example, everyone talks about what would happen to the mountain geographies or to the lowland areas because of climate change, global warming, and all. But on this issue, how Sikkim comes into the picture is because Sikkim remains a victim of disaster. Whenever there is a disaster, everybody talks about Sikkim as far as climate change and global warming is concerned. But nobody really thinks that Sikkim could be transformed into a geography, into a knowledge center that would actually start generating new knowledge as far as climate change is concerned, as far as what you call it, adaptations and mitigation principles are concerned. And that could be replicated, right, anywhere in the world. And that should be done. So our 2050, 2047 agenda in the Vikasit Bharat is not about third generation industrialization of Sikkim. We don't want industrialization like it happens in Delhi or it happens in Tamil Nadu. We want a very, very specific variety of industrialization, right? That would be of tremendous, what you call it, support to the entire sustainable development projects in Sikkim, precisely because we know that we are the water towers. If something goes wrong in Sikkim, not only India, but neighboring countries would also suffer. If we are able to protect our natural endowments, I think that would be because we have a very limited development maneuverability because we can't develop the way Calcutta develops or way Madras, Chennai develops because they can do whatever they would like because that's their carrying capacity is so huge, so robust and so resilient, whereas ours is fragile. Ours is what you call it, carrying capacity is at a very, very low level. Therefore, I think the government of Sikkim is very clear about it. The chief minister and his cabinet colleagues, his team, people at the grassroots keep discussing about it. What next? Right? I think we should take advantage of it. And this goes well with India's Viksit Bharat, what you call it, project by 1947.
Uh, Prof. Lama, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experience, and your hopes for Sikkim. This conversation has truly helped me, at least, to understand how one small Himalayan state, with its location and everything, can influence so much more. We hope to have you again soon on All Things Policy, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Winnie. Thank you. And thank you to all these team members of your organization, too. Thank you very much.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle at Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.